Hey Capricorn, this is your monthly tarot reading for the month of October 2023. We are back to our regularly scheduled everything, which is really nice to just be caught up. So thank you guys for your patience with all the family stuff that I had going on last month. The astrological highlights video will be out at the same time that these videos are out, so that should be up and available for you to check out. In these readings, we are taking a look at the beginning, middle, and end of the month. Also, any prominent challenge that is going to be felt and coming up and how to navigate that with some spiritual advice. Of the readings that I put out monthly, these are the ones that are longer. So if you want shorter bite-sized readings, I would check out the bi-weekly readings that go from new moon to full moon and full to new. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we'll just go with both of those. All right. Actually, that was backward from yesterday. We're not going to use that one, but we are going to use this one. All right. Got to follow that intuition. So those bi-weekly readings, those are approximately, I would say, about 5 minutes on average. These are approximately 15 on average. So just to give you an idea, I think my camera is slightly off. There we go. Okay, so let's get into it. We start off the beginning of this month, and I'm not going to go really too much into the astrology, but we start off the beginning of this month already looking into like, all right, eclipse season is about to start. So we have our first eclipse happening this month. So let's see how this all kind of starts to pan out. Again, this is a collective reading for Capricorn Sun, Capricorn rising signs. And because it's a collective reading, I also look at a couple of people who read collectively online. You just got to know that some months it's going to resonate and be your message, and some months it isn't. So trust your intuition, but also question whether, you know, if there's certain cards coming up that you're like, oh no, it doesn't resonate because I don't like those cards. If it doesn't, and this is your sun sign, go check out your rising, see if that makes a difference. And as always, as I always say, the best way to get specific for you and understand what's going on for you specifically in your life is to get a one-to-one reading. If that's with me, you're welcome to do that. The description box down below has that information. So how can we contextualize this reading? Through which kind of lens are we looking at this? So I use my astrological houses deck to let us know what area of life is being focused in on and zeroed in on, so how we can focus this information for the reading. And we have the third house, right? So this has to do with, yes, communication, not just how you speak, but your communication written as well. Also your thoughts, I would say, would be included with that. And then also your siblings. If you don't have siblings, then I would say sibling-like people in your life, like sibling-like friends, and maybe even extended family. Also your neighborhood, right? This would be local travel. So where you go for your neighborhood farmer's market or to get groceries or post office or your neighborhood, right? So like, where are you living locally? Who are you interacting with locally, that on that level? So that's what we're looking at here. So take all of that, and as you listen to this information, focus it through that particular lens. And also, if you find that these cards are really resonating, but you're like, this isn't hitting that area of my life, it's actually hitting my career life, cool. Focus it that direction. Again, it's a collective reading, so really just like take it and apply it as it makes sense. So we start out the beginning of the month with the Five of Swords. Interesting. Move into the middle of the month with the Queen of Wands, and we ended out with the Four of Swords. We also have, for the challenge, is the Devil card and the High Priestess coming through for the advice that you're getting, right? So let's start with the beginning of the month. The Five of Swords, you know, of the particularly sharp cards that exist in the deck, this is definitely one of those that I'm just like, if you are in some kind of communication conflict with somebody and you're being stubborn and wanting to bulldoze or just wanting to win for your ego's sake, like win at any cost, you might win. But on the other side of that, you might be asking yourself the question, like, was it worth it? At what cost did I win this particular round, right? At what cost? And also, you know, this isn't to say that you will be the victor. You could come out on the other side feeling a great loss. So ask yourself, when you are entering into any kinds of conflicting kinds of, like, not sparring, but conflicting conversations, arguments, things that feel confrontational, any kinds of things where you're wrapped up in those types of, it could also be legal dealings with this as well. If you're wrapped up in any of those kinds of things, ask yourself, is this really something that you feel genuinely is worth going toe-to-toe, going to battle for, whether you would become the victor or the loser? Now, on the losing side, if you are on the losing side, it usually shows you coming out on the other end feeling like a great loss. If you're on the winning side, it's like, you know, it usually shows coming out on top, but at a cost of like losing connections, perhaps ruining a reputation of yours, you know, just doing some kind of damage that is really hard to backpedal from. Maybe not irreversible, but maybe so. So I would watch yourself in the beginning of the month if there are communications that need to happen or that you feel you want to have that are contentious or confrontational, and with those in your local environment, somebody who's a sibling-like type person or otherwise, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be with a sibling-like type person. This could be communication overall. So I would just watch that as a consideration. So when we move into the middle of the month, we have the Queen of Wands. And you know, like this is around the time where we're going to start to, because it's the middle third of the month, right? So as we move into later part of October, right, we're going to have like, yeah, about mid-month, we're going to have that eclipse hit. And so this might be pertaining to the energy that you experience around that time. I really like this energy. The Queen of Wands is certainly a card that I think is just like fun. I would want her at any gathering that I have. Very much confident, very open and warm-hearted, and perhaps maybe it's due to the eclipse or not. Perhaps there's a level of like opening or melting of the ice around your heart when it comes to communications with people, for instance, as one example, right? So there's something to do with this that feels really warm and inviting. Definitely maybe feeling a little bit more in touch with yourself in a way where you're like feeling yourself, like really feeling yourself and having more confidence and feeling maybe more charming, maybe even a little bit more flirtatious. For those of you who like to, you know, work with or dabble in magic with a K, this might be also something that is bringing in some of this vibe, bringing this back into your world. So something to pay attention to. You know, I see that sandwiched on both ends of the month. It's like the beginning of the month, the last third of the month, we have swords showing up for you. And so, you know, I feel like there are some things that with your communication, with also your internal thoughts, the way you speak to yourself, I think there's just a lot happening cerebrally, is that a word? On a cerebral level. It's more like very mental type of energy and less of the feeling. Like in the middle of the month, it almost feels like something gets activated in you, which is why I think that perhaps this has to do with the lunation and with the first eclipse of eclipse season here. But we end out the month, and I think that all this fire, you're like, okay, now I need to integrate. And if you don't feel like you need to integrate, you're being told it should be a time where you need to integrate, right? The Four of Swords shows up and says like, hey, you need to take care of your health. You need to rest. You need to take some downtime, to not just downtime where you're distracting yourself. No, downtime in a way where you really are integrating any of like the lessons that have come forth, really examining like your life lessons, to get the kind of downloads and inspiration that you need to go forward. But in order to do that, sometimes we really need to stop and rest. So rest is just as important as the doing. And so even if you have a bunch of things that get activated during this middle part of the month, I think it's important to take some time to integrate what you've had stirred up during this period of time. Now, the Devil card showing up in your challenge position, obviously we have more than one challenge per month that we're dealing with at any given time. This would just be like the more prominent one. So I'm going to talk about some of the more shadowy aspects of the Devil card that, you know, because it's in the challenge position, I probably wouldn't normally even talk about. But for those of you out there who this feels like it's applicable to, this is like, just take this if it makes sense for you. But any of you who are struggling with toxic situations, or toxic, not just with other people, but within yourself, mainly relating even to like addictions of a certain kind, overdoing it. And this could be substance related, but this could also be non-substance related. We can be addicted to more things than just substances, including food, you know, like food, alcohol, like doing too many ceremonies for like plant medicine, right? Like there's like, but that's only a half of it, I think. Like there's also, we can be addicted to meditation, to Netflix, to gaming, to like yoga, right? Like we can find a lot of different ways that we take something that is seemingly innocuous and we turn it into something that's poisonous for ourselves when we're utilizing it to numb or to run away. And numbing and running away sometimes then escaping is actually good and healthy. I know that's not maybe a popular perspective. I think it's worth saying though that it's okay to have that sometimes. It's when we take it to a degree where it's really affecting our lives and it's like it's past a point of taking a break. So I would consider whether there are any kinds of things like this. Now, for some of you who that doesn't really apply to, I'm going to say that this has to do with overworking yourself and feeling like you are tied to certain obligations that you perceive are the way it's supposed to be, or this is how you have to do it, or you're just supposed to, or because of maybe out of a sense of honor. Maybe it comes from an honorable place. You feel like I need to stay committed to what I said I was going to do, even to my detriment. Even like instead of renegotiating things or having conversations with people about certain commitments that you've made, perhaps it's like overly committed to and feeling obligated to certain situations, like tied to the block, right? And it's like we see that here with the marionettes in this particular deck. I have to say, I really brought this deck out because it's that time of year. It feels seasonal. I'm pretty stoked about it. But in the way that it's represented here, I think it's pretty interesting. Normally what we see is two people who have chains around their necks, but they're so loose, the chains around their necks, it's like they don't realize they could just take it off over their head and walk away, but we see them chained to a block. And so in this particular case, this is what we're seeing is just like you feeling tied to you having obligations that are to your detriment, that no longer work, or that you just like did out of a sense of duty, or that you think you're supposed to do. And it's like sometimes we need to break that block and break that connection, break that chain. I'm not saying connection with another person, but like the contract essentially, right? And for others of you, I would say some of that might be related to being a workaholic and being overly focused on work to your detriment as well, to the point where you're not allowing yourself to nourish and nurture yourself with friendships and social time and love and family time and nature time and like other kinds of time besides work time, besides career time, right? And so I know it's a very stereotypical thing to talk about with regard to Capricorns. However, this actually is, the Devil card is a Capricorn card, and we see this as a challenge that's coming up. So I'm talking about more of the shadowy aspects of the Devil card here. This is what we see showing up, right? So if you are really overworking, maybe you don't even feel like it's overworking. Maybe you're just like a workhorse. But examine, are you getting enough balance in the wheel of life? It was like a cheese wheel of life, like just slices of whatever, cheese, pie, pizza. You know, you look at the different areas of your life, you know, just like, yes, work, life path, friends, family, love, self-time, like education, you know, health, like all of these different areas. Are you really imbalanced and have everything in the realm of like work? Or are you actually opening and trying to at least create some more energy going into all of these different areas so that you're nourished in a more rounded way? So the spiritual advice that's coming through with regard to the month overall, but definitely with regard to the challenge, is the High Priestess card. You know, one of the things about the High Priestess is that she doesn't have like a roof over her. She is completely open to the cosmos and she draws energy down from that. Also, she's able to hold the energy between light and shadow. And she's also able to be very trusting in her gut instincts and her intuition. And the only way she's able to do all of this, here's where the advice comes in, is that she is able to really quiet herself in meditation, in some type of solitude, some type of solace, that she takes for herself to really feel into, like, what is she really feeling? If you don't know what you're really feeling on an emotional level, if you can't do a scan of your body and assess like where your body's like really tight, or maybe you're having like ignoring an ache or a pain, or like whatever, like those are all messages from our body, right? If you're not present to what's happening with your body, if you're not present to what you're feeling emotionally on a regular basis overall, but also day to day, you can't identify how you're feeling overall at any given time. That's something to be present to. Your thoughts, the thoughts in your mind. What kinds of beliefs, what kinds of stories, what kinds of things are you hearing that voice inside your head that's you talking about and saying, and about the world, the commentary about the world, about yourself, about other people in your life. And so this is where you want to pay attention to, are you present to all of that? Because when we're present to all of these different layers and we're really at home with it, we can be with it, we're not running from it, and we can sit with it and understand it, we can pull that all together and it becomes our internal guidance system because we're present. Now we can clearly understand when we get an intuitive hit, when we get a gut instinct, when we get something, to what to follow and what not to. We can start to trust our intuition in a very different way. And so her instruction is to be present to that, whether that's your meditation, journaling, whatever it is, right? Find a way to be in tune with yourself on an intuitive level. And, this isn't about just like following every intuitive hit that comes, right? That could just really end up being a very chaotic world where you're just like pulled this way and that. I'm not saying that you can't follow synchronicity and flow and omens and have a very like well navigated world. I'm saying that there is a balance with that, right? I think that there's a tendency in spiritual type communities to kind of take things to extremes. And so this is not what we want to do here. We want to make sure that we are balancing our ability to do this with reason, like to be able to inject some reason and intelligence into the way that we apply these types of techniques and ways of navigating, the methods that we use for navigating in the world. So that's what I see coming up here. Definitely take a look at the overall or the first half of October astrology so that you have some understanding of like how to put this into context and to kind of see like what is the actual flow for the month. And this might make a lot more sense that way. If you want to get a little bit of guidance along the way, because this is for the entire month and you want to get like little bites of energy to help you along the way, I would say check out the bi-weekly readings. Those go from new to full moon and full to new moon. So those are also on the horizon. That is what I've got for you. If this was helpful in any way or insightful in any way, please consider giving the video a like. It really helps me as I'm building the channel. It helps me to get seen by more people, helps me with the algorithm gods essentially. And while you're at it, why not subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos on the horizon. Definitely have some cool things planned, which may or may not come before the holidays. So we'll see about that. But thank you for your time. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.